Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. And for the third week in a row, maybe the fourth, we're back in the East Dutch Tavern. We're on an absolute roll. I'm joined by Henry Hill, sporting a lovely England shirt from around 2010, and Michael McCubbs. Henry, how many England shirts do you own? Where do you rank that in your...
This is it.
This is it?
Really? I bought this in South America when I went to the Brazil World Cup. It was the only England shirt they had.
Fair enough.
It was fate, and it stayed with me ever since. I only wore it because after a bit of Southgate bashing last week, I thought I'd show. A lot of love for my arguments in the comments, by the way. Thank you for supporting me.
I think most people are on your side.
Well, I mean, listen, he's been told he's safe, so yeah, and rightly so. But yeah, no, I love this shirt. Number 6, figure out who that is at home. Controversial choice.
Despicable.
Although he did have a good World Cup amongst a lot of terrible performances that year. Anyway, McCubbs, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, dude.
Enjoying the sun?
Too bad. Enjoying the sun, of course. Yeah, just loving it. Transfer season. It's my favourite time of the year.
I really do like transfer season, actually. I know some people find it drags a bit, but I actually find it really intriguing. And anyway, no surprise, we're talking about transfers and the window as a whole today, because we're going to talk about the clubs that are losing the window so far. Now, obviously, it's the 23rd of June. Actually, Friday's maybe the 24th of June. Either way, whatever the date is, there's still weeks to go in the window, so there's plenty of time for this to change. But the situation in these clubs is a little bit alarming at the start of this window. And McCubbs, there's no better place to start than Ajax at the suggestion of Josh Davis, because you've stolen their manager and you might be stealing most of their players.
Well, yeah, I mean, the second part of that, don't hold your breath, do you? Because, United's transfer kind of summer looks predictably slow at the moment. I'm sure we might come onto them a bit. Obviously, they're Premier League based, so maybe not. But yeah, Ajax. I mean, I think this summer was always going to be difficult for them, wasn't it? It felt even towards the end of the season, even before Ten Hag had become United's front runner. It felt like he was probably going to go somewhere in the summer, didn't it? And a lot of that team have been there for quite a while. He's put two really great teams together as well. I think his time there had kind of run its course. Obviously, Overmars leaving in pretty embarrassing and damning circumstances. There are a number of things where it's kind of like, it feels like this team and this kind of era has had its time. You can't take it away from them though. Like, what an amazing 5 years he had there. Obviously won the league by 2 points somehow only by 2 points, despite them having by far the best attack and best defence in the division. Obviously made the Champions League semi-finals back in 2019. Blooded so many great players. So I think it was always going to be difficult this summer with Ten Hag going. Sebastian Haller now we probably may well be official at Dortmund by the time you're watching this.
We called that one. We said it should happen.
We
at the start,
did.
And,
back in May, we were all saying that makes perfect sense. I think before Dortmund were even properly linked. So a rare win on Euro Football Daily in that sense. But let's talk about the new manager though, because that's Alfred Schreuder, who was previously Julian Nagelsmann's assistant at Hoffenheim. He actually took over Ten Hag's assistant role all the way back in 2009 at FC Twente after Ten Hag left to go to PSV. So was it PSV? Yeah, PSV. They've got history, and then he was Ten Hag's assistant in that 18-19 season at Ajax. So he's got a lot of experience. He's worked under Koeman at Barcelona, took Club Brugge to the Belgian title last year after leading them to second and winning the playoffs. So this is a guy who's been around. He's worked under some really top coaches. I'm not an expert on him, but his CV is very impressive, I think, and I think he's the kind of right kind of guy to take this Ajax team forward. He's got a lot of work to do in terms of rebuilding that squad. Obviously, Ryan Gravenberch has gone as well. For not that much money to Bayern Munich, let's face it. Bit of a shame they couldn't have got more out of him in that sense, but he only had 1 year left to run on his contract, didn't he? So it was always going to be a bit difficult. He didn't want to run down his contract as well, so they didn't have much of a choice in that. Antony could leave. What's his name?
Lisandro Martinez.
Lisandro Martinez, that's what I'm talking about. He looks likely he could go as well. Obviously, talk about United and Arsenal going for him. I think Jurrien Timber, I think, is probably staying, isn't he, at this stage?
I don't think
Van Gaal scared him.
Yeah,
I don't think they'll sell too.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. But so yeah, there's rebuilding to do. Obviously, Mazraoui gone as well, and he is one of the longest serving members of that side. So yeah, there's options out there. Bergwijn. I feel like it's a matter of time until he leaves Spurs, and Ajax seem to be the number one destination for him. But at this moment in time, they haven't signed anyone. Obviously, they've replaced Mark Overmars as well as sporting director, so it's a transitional summer. We'll probably see a drop-off from them next term, but I think that was always going to be an inevitability. And yeah, I don't think Ajax fans should be worried in that sense, but we will see a drop-off from them next season. I think it will take them 2 or 3 years to get near to the level that they were under Ten Hag again. But that's no bad thing when you're losing. Again, for the second time in 3 years, you're losing significant members of the squad. I think they're going to have to rely on the academy, and they're going to have to pick up some good deals elsewhere.
You just touched on the academy there, and actually I've just wrote and explained about why the 2019 golden generation have perhaps struggled since they've all left. So Ziyech, who now looks like he's going to Milan, De Jong struggling, De Ligt had a difficult time at moments. Van der Beek, of course, and a lot of these guys, excluding Ziyech, did come through De Toekomst, I think that's what it's called, the academy there, and don't write off the ability of how good that is at producing talent. They've got Per Schuurs, I think we haven't seen much of recently. He's ready to be probably elevated into that starting 11 after being hugely exciting. And we've seen in recent years, the Eredivisie, the top two in particular, have become better at buying players out of the German division, buying players out of Liga as well. Sengare, Götze, who's now got his move back to Frankfurt, which I'm really pleased for him. It's a great move for him. Philip Max as well. He was highly rated at Augsburg, and he went over to PSV. So I think there's still room to be very optimistic about it. And I think a lot of these, Ajax is such a consistent club. I mean, this is kind of what I was touching on in my Explained, which please do go watch, is that they've been at the top for so long that I think 9 times winners of the Eredivisie since 2000, only twice finished outside the top 2 in that time, financially dwarf everyone else. Such a well-run club, such a good organisation, and they do, their mantra is about promoting 3 players each year from De Toekomst into that starting 11. So I just think because they're so consistent and have such a history of success, they will be okay. But you're right, I think actually losing Ten Hag is probably the biggest blow out of everything, because he's been the glue that's kept everything together. But Schroeder, I think it's a wise appointment. But yeah, it's not all doom and gloom in my opinion. It just they've got a busy summer ahead of them, maybe trying to get in a few good names to keep that kind of optimism alive in that squad. Yeah,
they're so similar to Bayern in many respects in terms of how they recycle old players and put them into their board, and keep the culture and the philosophy of the club going. It's really impressive in that sense. And also you mentioned looking in more interesting places like Edson Alvarez, they signed from South America, Lisandro Martinez, Antony as well. They are excellent at picking up young talent between 18 and 21 and turning them into players that are going to flip for at least £40 million each, probably this summer, in Lisandro Martinez and Antony. So fair play to them. And Haller was always a bit of a short-term deal. They got him in for €20 million, I think it was, and they're selling him for 35. At his age, it's not the worst.
That's pretty good.
And also, a lot of Ajax fans that I follow on Twitter say he's not really a natural Ajax striker. He's just been really effective there, as in there are more natural fits, and they probably had more success with Tadic there, essentially, in the last few years.
I wouldn't even be that surprised. I wouldn't even be that surprised if the solution is just put Tadic back in the centre, get a slightly more advanced number 10. I mean, I guess Steven Berghuis maybe turn him into a bit more of a goal scorer potentially. I don't know. There are definitely options in that sense.
Brian Brobby, they've still got, and they've got. I think they're looking at Joshua Zirkzee as well from Bayern Munich as well, who had a really weird run of good form. Was it the season before last, or even maybe the season before that? But hasn't really had many opportunities at Bayern since. I think he's been out on loan. Anyway, let's move on to our second team, which is Napoli, at the suggestion of @Cecil Takim Ndifo. Henry, you've been writing a little bit about Napoli. A little bit sad, obviously, the end of the last season, finishing quite a distant third in the end, and a lot of change there as well.
Yes, I'm a lot more worried for Napoli's hopes next season than Ajax's. I think Spalletti's even come out and said already it's going to be a real mission to stay in the top 4 next season. I mean, Yes, they had a disappointing end, as you say, finished third, but still third for Napoli is a very good performance. They've been out of the Champions League for 2 seasons, they're back in the Champions League, and it was their biggest sort of flirtation with a Scudetto in years, really. I mean, because obviously they pushed Juve close a few times, but Juve never looked like they were going to cede the title to Napoli in those previous years.
I don't really ever remember them like being top of the table for a long period.
Exactly, and this was their moment to go for it. But it just looks like Aurelio De Laurentiis has decided to slash the wage bill in a big way. I mean, we've already seen the heartbreak of Dries Mertens being let go. He asked to stay, still scored 11 goals in the league last season. Lorenzo Insigne, he's gone to, Toronto. He's only 31. He's not even that old. I mean,
not in Serie A terms.
Exactly. He also scored 11 goals last season. Yeah, I mean, if Sebastian Giovinco went over there and absolutely dominated, I mean, I cannot imagine what he's going to do. Apparently he's on £40 million over the 4 years. So, fair play to him.
Go on, Lorenzo.
Fair play to him. But yeah, I mean, they've sold Milik to Marseille, 12.5 million euros, bit of a whatever move that. I'm not quite sure if that was what Milik had in mind all those years ago. But, I mean, they have made some signings, haven't they? They've bought in Anguissa for under 16 million euros. He's been impressive there. Matias Oliveira from Getafe. They've got a winger from Georgia too, who I can't claim to know too much about. But it does look like the rest of the squad is about to get stripped once more. I mean, lots of speculation about Kalidou Koulibaly, whether or not he's going to stay. I think Spalletti said if he is sold, then Spalletti will probably consider his future at the club.
Really?
Because he's considered that important. Fabian Ruiz, lots of talk in the press at the moment of Arsenal looking at him. I think he's an absolutely brilliant midfielder. I really do. I think him and Luis Alberto over at Lazio are two of the most kind of spoken about midfielders in Europe, in my opinion. And Zielinski, he's supposedly being looked at by Lazio. I think they could have quite an interesting summer. And also Victor Osimhen, he's come out and said he's not sure where his future lies. Lots of talk at the moment over his contract and what exactly is going on there. Osimhen, I think if he was
there next year, surely.
Sure, I agree with you. But if he was available, I wouldn't be surprised if a few clubs looking to put a bid in, because he's one of the best strikers that I've seen in a very long time.
Man United might need a striker.
Exactly, but there's a lot of talent in that squad. But if it gets
what's going on out there?
Sorry, more sounds and noises of the Stelic Tavern. Forgive me there. But yeah, if they do get stripped of what's been actually a world-class core, then I'm really worried for Napoli. It doesn't look like they're really good. Players like Diego Demme and Seksha, I don't think these players are really good enough to step up in the meantime. So I'm really concerned, and I'm really concerned that if De Laurentiis does kind of lead them down this path, then it's going to be hugely unpopular with the fans. I was also writing about Valencia, what Peter Lim's doing there, looking like they're going to sell almost 3-4 players maybe now. Fiorentina looking at Yunus Musa too. So these owners have got to be careful how they go about it, but at the same time they've got to balance the financial situation of the league. I wouldn't write them off making a big signings, but I think it's not pretty right now. And they're trying to buy that guy from Brighton who I've never even heard of, and it's just.
I don't know who you mean.
It's just, it's not great for Napoli right now, and I'm really concerned. And it's such a shame after such a positive end of the year, Champions League football, great sides. Lots going for it. I'm just surprised how the bottom's falling out this year.
Yeah, I remember a couple of months ago, and obviously we try our best to get as much information as possible about clubs' finances, but it's almost impossible because clubs don't like to publish it because it will just give their other teams in the market knowledge about what sort of situation they're in. But we were suggesting the likes of Christian Pulisic for Napoli. Pulisic is not going to go to Napoli in this market. Well, considering how much they're trying to drop from the wage bill, so it's a bit of a disaster. And I put down some other ideas. Could they hijack Milan's bid for Ziyech? Probably not in this market. Depay's got 1 year left on his contract. He'd be an awesome Insigne replacement. They're not going to get him either. I think they're going to be having to get depth at fullback to try and replace Malqui, who's left. And maybe they could get Youssef Attal in from Nice, who we've talked about for quite a few years, quite a strong defensive fullback. But yeah, Napoli fans, let us know what you're thinking in the comments below. I think it's a little bit of a troubling time. Right, let's move over to Spain and talk Atletico Madrid, one of my favourite topics to bash. No, I joke. But they have had a pretty uneventful summer so far, and this came in from @Jadel. Extremely quiet window, as I said. Hector Herrera and Luis Suarez have left, and that means I think they need a defensive midfielder in. They need an out-and-out number 9 to replace Luis Suarez, and they need a few centre-backs as well. Apparently Mario Hermoso is going to be got rid of even. Axel Witsel is either announced or close to being announced. Not the most exciting signing, to be honest. I know he's going to rival Kondogbia, maybe share some minutes in that defensive midfield slot, which they did kind of need to do because Koke is not nearly as effective in that deeper lying role. But he's now 33. I thought he was really pretty poor at Dortmund last year in a midfield that... Actually, he got a surprising amount of minutes as well. I was looking earlier.
Well, he was at centre-back a lot of the time, to be honest, wasn't he?
Yeah, true. But 29 appearances and 22 starts. And I just thought... He didn't look anywhere like the Witsel of even 2 years before that.
He had a really serious injury, I think ACL or something like that, and he's just not been the same player since.
Not been the same. And I do feel sorry for him because he was a great player, chose to spend his prime in China, and what can you do? You knew what you were signing up for at the time. I'm sure his bank balance is happy for it, but I do think he wasted some of his best years. In terms of who they could bring in, we know that there's lots of talk about Carlos Soler. I think that would be an exciting signing. But at the same time, if they haven't managed to make Thomas Lemar work in the same way they wanted to, in the same way Rodrigo de Paul, the same stuff we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, would Carlos Soler be an instant upgrade in that area? I'm not totally sure. He was also on penalties last year. That inflates your numbers. One of the centre-backs they're looking at is Axel Disasi from Monaco. He's really highly rated. We've liked him on Eurofootball Daily for a long, long time. I think that's a smart pickup. Can also play in a variety of roles in a back three as well. But we just need to see more of it so far. And yes, it's still early on in the window, and Atleti have generally waited, reasonably late in the window to strike in recent years, I think, but they are leaving themselves quite short in a few areas. And with Real Madrid already having signed Rudiger and Tchouameni, their squad looks pretty much ready. They might add a right winger, they might add a right back, but they finished considerably higher than Atletico Madrid last year. And you bet Barcelona are going to make one weird move and maybe a couple of effective ones before the end of the window as well. So, Atleti, it looks like third place at best. Next year seems sort of destined for them, unless they pull a rabbit out of the hat. And Axel Witsel is not the sort of signing I'd be looking to make if I was trying to excite some fans. Speaking of Spain, though, and speaking of La Liga, my Cubs, let's talk Sevilla at Blazer State's suggestion. Really damp end to the season, really. I mean, that seems a little bit ridiculous because they did finish fourth, but their results towards the tailor end, it was a lot of boring football. And there's even speculation that Lopetegui was under a bit of pressure. Yeah,
I mean, they were right on the heels of Real Madrid, weren't they, at the Christmas time, even into January, and then won 4 of their final 18 games. I mean, no, it was bad, and I think the problem is that it wasn't like they were, when they were hot on the heels of Real Madrid, they weren't doing so playing super great attacking football. That they under Lopetegui, they have been built on the back of a really solid defence, haven't they? And that's what's got them through games. Towards the start of the season, they were kind of in that kind of championship winning form. They were winning games 1-0. They were kind of getting a bit lucky at times. But generally speaking, as a defensive unit, they were really good. And they've lost that. They've lost one of their key components of that in Diego Carlos. I think it was always seemed kind of likely. I think we were kind of surprised in the end that he didn't leave in January. Obviously, he was being strongly linked with Newcastle at the time, wasn't he? Koundé, I think, even if he doesn't go this summer, I feel like he probably wants to go. I think it's the right time in his career to take that step up. But I do feel a bit bad for him in some ways. I feel like it might be one of those ones that doesn't happen for some reason. If they've already sold Diego Carlos for pretty good money to Villa, I feel like they can probably afford to try and price out Koundé from the market.
Especially with his injury at the moment, they might just be teams might be like, we don't know what state he's going to be back after his injury.
Yeah, I mean, I think and especially given that Chelsea's transfer dealings, are going to be slower this summer. Interesting, I saw
Not
that.
With Super Todd in charge.
Doing everything, owning the club. Being the chairman and the sporting director.
What a great idea.
I love it. We'll see how that goes. It's interesting, actually. I saw something earlier. I don't know how much there is in it, but apparently they're potentially looking at Atletico Madrid sporting director.
Yes,
Andrea Berta, is it? Who there's a funny story about her and Boubacar Kamara actually before he went to Villa. Apparently, I don't know if it's true, but apparently she wasn't impressed when she went to meet him. And that was the reason why they stopped their interest in him. But you may not have heard any of that because of what's going on outside. But hopefully we're all right. I heard that that's a thing. I don't know how much there is in that. But what were we talking about? We were talking about Sevilla, weren't we? So I think I don't know. I think the worry for them is that they could drop out the top 4 at the same time. I don't think there's as much to worry about as for a club like, say, Napoli, because I just don't think the competition is that great for the top four in Spain. I'm afraid to say it. Like, I think Betis had a very strong end to the season. I can see they're probably the best team outside the top four. I think Villarreal as well could progress next season as well if they don't lose key players. I don't think they will, but at the same time, like, Unai Emery, a much better tournament manager, isn't he, than a league manager. Sociedad, I don't think Sociedad are consistent enough for the top four either. Like, I think they've shown that enough in the last few years. So I wouldn't be too worried again. But if a Campos and Naziri go, then that could be a bit of a worry. I feel like Naziri is kind of waiting to kind of flourish again. He had a really poor season, didn't he? But there is a good player in there. But yeah, like, it's been slow at the moment, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I feel like they'll probably end up getting some kind of fairly kind of decent mid-range transfers over the line. Like, Monchi's still there. Monchi's still there, and they always end up with like 6 or 7 new players, and like 3 of them get about 300 minutes all season, and then like 2 of them do really well. So like they'll probably be all right.
If they just look at Barcelona, you've got Longley, who needs to go on. I think he's a good centre back.
Yeah, back to Sevilla.
Braithwaite, I think he's a half decent forwards. Can't be much worse than some of the players they've got. These are the kind of little pickups I reckon at the end of the season, the window we'll see them make when Barcelona are really getting desperate and having to move on.
Longley's a great shout, actually.
So I think Longley would be excellent in a. He's only 26. He's really, he looks a lot older, but I agree with you. They'll pull some players in, but they can't have failures like Anthony Martial and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, Monchi said last year was the best squad he's ever put together. You've got to think. Really? I mean, it's just Sevilla are really. They need to. I think they need to win something again. Like a trophy. I don't think winning the Europa League every now and then is almost good enough anymore. I think they really need to lay into this La Liga race because I still think Barcelona are there for the taking if teams are smart in the market this year.
Yeah, it's a weird one, Sevilla, isn't it? Like, I don't know what it'd be like to support Sevilla. Quite clearly, like, the 4th best team in Spain quite consistently. Like, yes, they've done quite well in the Champions League. Did they reach the last 16, was it last year or the year before, and got knocked out by Bayern? Underwhelmed in the Champions League this year in a quite easy group, I seem to remember as well. So, yeah, Monchi and Lopetegui have got some question marks over them at the start of this window. Let's quickly touch on Man United and Chelsea, because about 20% of the replies to my tweet were about them. McCubs, less so Man United maybe, because I think we talk about them on Sunday Vibes all the time, but Chelsea, it's been a quite worrying start to the window. I mean, Lukaku gone, Rudiger gone, Christensen gone, Marcus Alonso potentially leaving, Azpilicueta. Like, no actually firm incomings yet.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying it's all a bit of a mess, really, and yeah, they've.
I wouldn't be surprised if Tuchel was quite angry right now.
Yeah, I mean, Buck and Granovskaya are gone. Like, I mean, like they really are in danger of dropping out the top 4, I think, and. I don't. There's not that much to remedy it, is there? Like, the club is in. Like, I mean, they're lucky to be operating as they are in some ways, because that Roman Abramovich situation and the selling of the club was touch and go at points. At least what we're led to believe by the kind of reports. I'm sure like there was, there was clearly some really good work going on behind the scenes to make that all happen, and they pulled it off. So in some ways, I kind of think that Chelsea will be, in some ways, Chelsea fans are kind of some ways just happy to have a fair amount of the squad still there. But yeah, all of that happened at the wrong time. Obviously, when players were when they wanted to sign new contracts, but at the same time, Christensen was always going to be gone, wasn't he? Rudiger was always going to be gone. They could have planned better in that sense. Like, you can't rely on Jules Koundé they've been looking at for the last 2 years, and it hasn't happened yet. Like, you can't throw all your eggs in that basket, I don't think. Obviously, there's talk of like Bremer as well, but I think Inter is probably maybe a more likely destination for him at this stage. There's loads of good young centre backs out there. I feel like there's more good young centre backs out there in the European market than I can remember in the last few years. That's another little technical hitch there. But I think there's definitely possibilities. But the problem is that they've lost their negotiating team, and they've got a newcomer into the sport doing all of it. I don't know what Todd Boehly's credentials are, in general, what his kind of CV is like in terms of negotiations.
He might be some players around.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like he may well be great. Like he's clearly backing himself, isn't he? So like, I don't want to like throw shade on someone who I don't like, who I'm not an expert on. But he is operating in a completely new market, and it's just I have no idea what's going to happen. Like,
it feels quite Glazery, Ed Woodward, Farhad Moshiri-esque. This whole I'll try and run all of it myself when I don't know a lot about football.
Yeah,
personally,
I cannot believe that both Bruce Buck and Granovskaya have been. I walked away from the club. I cannot believe they weren't asked to stay on. Just to see out this window. Just get to the end of the window, almost have Boehly shadowing them. Say what you want about Granovskaya. She's one of the most formidable negotiators in the sport. She's pulled off some outrageous sales, etc. at times, and I'd love to hear her opinion on the business they've done so far, Lukaku transfer, etc. So, yeah, he's given himself an absolute mountain to cope with in this window, because they've got a lot of rebuilding, and I think Tuchel will be knocking on his door. If Tuchel goes, that would be the biggest blow to that Chelsea project at this point, because I mean, what are they going to?
It's the reason I think they'll be competitive next year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, but they can't go into next season with Havertz and Werner as their only two credible forwards. They need to get someone in, and it's why is Ousmane Dembele not signed yet? I don't understand what's going on. Yeah. It's nerve-wracking times for Chelsea, and I agree with you. With the strength of Arsenal, making some great signings, Fabio Vieira coming in.
Jesus is going to be announced. Hopefully,
exactly.
I don't know why I'm saying hopefully. I don't care, but in the next week.
I think Tottenham are going to be really good next season in a funny way. I can just see them putting together quite a campaign. I think you're right. I think Europa League might be a realistic thing for them to be preparing for in 12 months' time.
As we say on the end of June, it could be different by the start of the season in 6 weeks, because I'm sure they will go into the window, or go into the season, I should say, having signed some players. But let's move on to some quickfire questions. Our first quickfire question comes in from Sean15 Mackenzie, very active on Twitter. Appreciate that, Sean, and thank you very much for your quickfire question. It is Dortmund to win the Bundesliga next season? It's a kind of a short, weirdly worded question, but you know what he means. Henry, what are your thoughts on this? A lot of signings coming in, and very early. Like, if you talk about clubs winning the transfer window, which seems ridiculous after losing Haaland, but they've strengthened pretty effectively and quickly.
Yeah. Love their lineup.
They'll start pre-season with everyone.
Yeah, listen, I'm more optimistic. I felt they were going to be really good last year under Rosa, and then it didn't pan out. But I really do like the additions they've made. Terzic has a pretty good record, actually, as Dortmund manager. Guided them to that Pokal when he was in charge in that brief period. Really looked to have them gelled at the end. It was almost one of those awkward moments where they had to then. They'd already announced another manager, so difficult transition. But yes, I agree. Haller up front, I think he's going to be brilliant. I think we touched on him earlier. I think that's exactly the kind of forward they need, an out-and-out forward to replace Haaland. And I think with Adeyemi sort of working off him, that is a very, very exciting signing.
Adeyemi as well, wide or central.
Yeah. Adeyemi is rapid. He is so quick. I think we're going to see a bit more of Reina next season. I think he's going to be fully fit once more.
That's a good point. I almost forgot about Gio Reyna.
Exactly. Yeah. And Marco Reus, an excellent player still. I think seems to be producing every single season for Dortmund with better players around him. I think it's going to be exciting to see what he can do. I think Bellingham, he's definitely going to be there for another year, only getting better as well. And then that centre-back, where they've strengthened in defence, is stunning, really. Schlotterbeck, 20 million euros. He came out and he said if money was what he wanted, he'd have gone elsewhere, but he's only 22 or something like that. Money's not a problem for him right now, which that's the kind of mentality
perfect
you're looking
to be at
for
the next 3 years.
Exactly. And then Niklas Süle, to get him from Bayern Munich in the way they have, I think that's defence is already so much better than it was before. Hummels as well, I think take a bit of strain off his shoulders, because I think he's had a lot to do in the previous seasons. Obviously, they've still got work to be done, sort of thinning out that squad. But yeah, I don't think they're going to win the Bundesliga. I actually just think that Mane signing is so good for Dortmund, for Bayern Munich. I think that's maybe given them a bit more momentum again. But I really hope that it's close. I really think it could be close this year. It's certainly not a happy...
If they lose Lewandowski, it definitely could
be. It's certainly not a happy camp over at Bayern Munich at the moment. However, I think Dortmund have they've got a really good chance, but no, I don't think this is the season for them to win it just yet. I think maybe next year, once these signings have settled in a little bit, we could see that happen.
I think also Leipzig will be in the title race next year, at least as much as Dortmund. I mean, if anything, if their second half of the season is anything to go by under Tedesco, like they were comfortably the second best team in Germany in that second half of the season, weren't they?
Not far off Bayern as well.
Yeah, from front to back, like they were great. If Andre Silva can kind of step up his scoring form. The worry is obviously Nkunku if he's to go, but again, like
doesn't look like
actually, is he going to go anywhere? Like, there's no club seem to have him as the top target. I think we were saying that like a month ago, weren't we? But like Man United don't seem to be targeting him. The kind of obvious choices, Chelsea, Man United, like in another, in a parallel universe, I think Man City would probably be targeting a player like that. But they're fine, in that area, like. And obviously Leipzig will charge top dollar as well. So like if Nkunku stays, if they can keep that defence together as well, if Guardiola can stay, if Simakan stays, I think Simakan will almost certainly stay. Then like I think that Leipzig team like look very, very strong, and obviously their recruitment is pretty decent as well. So like if they do lose a key player, like you perhaps back them to replace them. Like I mean, considering that Sabitzer seemed like such a big loss at the start of last term. The fact that they don't seem to miss him at all now, I think speaks volumes. So I think Leipzig will also be in there. Yeah, I think it will be a good season. If Lewandowski leaves Bayern, like you say, I think that there's, that's a big hole to fill. And even if they do, it's just like I just don't no one in that Bayern team. Not even Mane. I might eat my words here. Come next May, is going to score like 30, 35 goals in the Bundesliga. So like.
He's not getting close to 40 in the league.
And maybe like Sane, Gnabry and Mane might make up that collectively, or at least might make up like another 15
Sane
collectively.
has a slightly better year.
Yeah,
has
like
a slightly
it
better
could
year.
happen, but yeah, like I think Bayern, we may not see Bayern dominate as much, but like there's such a big gap there already that I would still back them to get over the line.
And if Lewandowski leaves Bayern, which I really hope he does, because it will just make the league so much more interesting, and he wants to leave, it seems like the right time, then I think we do have a genuine three-way title race on. But having said that, if Bayern get through Konrad Laimer through the door, they've already strengthened really effectively in defence and midfield with Gravenberch and Mesraoui. Maybe we're being a little bit wishful thinking, I think is maybe taking over. That was a good answer though, I think, from all of us. Mm-hmm. Right, let's go on to Jadal's question. That's the better way of saying it. Good discussion. What does Roma have to do to follow up their Conference League success? We could have put Roma in losing the window, actually, Henry, because they have had a bit of a nothing start. Nemanja Matic has come in.
Matic, big signing.
Big signing.
I think Matic could be a success there. Actually, I'm not joking there. Like.
Yeah, they signed the young Benfica keeper as well.
Yes,
his name is
Silva.
Yes, that's it.
Mile Silva.
He obviously had that kind of emotional moment where he sort of screwed up in his Champions League debut, but I think he turned
against Man United, I think.
Turned it around there.
Mourinho gave him this big hug afterwards. I think that was what happened.
I think like signing Rui Patricio for like 14 million was a massive overspend, but so he's been shaky this last season as well. But I think it looks like they're close to signing Zeki Celik from Lille, and his numbers actually are pretty impressive as a defensive right back.
He is a defender.
Very, very solid. And if they've got him and Rick Karsdorp, who's one of my favourite players.
Karsdorp's really good going forward.
He's excellent going. I think to have those two options on the right side of defence so they can switch up their tactics, that's a really good thing and quite Mourinho-esque in many ways. And if they can get Guedes through the door, apparently they've agreed personal terms. It's just trying to now negotiate down a price tag. I think Valencia want about 40 million for him. They're trying to throw in Amadou Diawara into that deal too. So if they can get him for a reasonable price, that is such a good upgrade on Mkhitaryan in the midfield. Only 25 years old. Over him or Soler, I'll be taking Guedes every day of the week. So I give them a bit of time to see what they can do. I still think we didn't see the best of Shomurodov last season, mainly because just didn't really get much game time at all. So yeah, I think it's going to be another really exciting season of Serie A. I still think the three big teams, AC Milan, Inter Milan and Juve, have all strengthened in many ways this summer. They're all looking to push on. And I'd say I put Roma, I think they've got a really good shot at getting back in the Champions League next season, which has to be the minimum expectation for Mourinho, certainly, at this point.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with Milan, because there's speculation about Botman and Renato Sanchez not quite getting over the line. Ziyech, I think, is an excellent signing, but if they get all three of those, I mean, that's really good strengthening. And Lukaku going back to Inter as well, they will have the best attack next year, at least on paper. So yeah, it's going to be an absolute thriller.
Can I just ask you two a quick fire question?
Yeah.
Is that all right?
McCubbs, you take this.
Okay.
Athletic Club, presidential elections coming up.
Yeah.
Whoever wins, one is picking Ernesto Valverde, the other Marcelo Bielsa. Yeah. Who would you want as your manager next season out of the two? Because very different, both have history.
Yeah, both managed them before,
yeah.
Definitely. I was reading, actually, I'm not an expert on Bielsa's time there, although it's very storied, isn't it? There's mixed feelings about it, because there was a bit of bad blood between him and the club towards the end of his tenure. What's new with Bielsa. So I've heard there's a bit of a mixed reaction to the idea of Bielsa coming back in. Arecha Baleta, the presidential candidate who's endorsing him, I think was, at least before he endorsed him, was third favourite out of three. So I don't know. I mean, the election's today, I think, as people are watching this. So, But from my perspective, I think Bielsa for sure. Really? I think Valverde will be it will be an easier transition from Marcelino, because they're both more defence-first managers, aren't they? So in that sense, in some ways, the thing is with Bielsa, he never actually performed that well in La Liga. It was that Copa del Rey run and the Europa League run which really set that team apart. And you obviously turned Ander Herrera into a star, and Javi Martinez got a huge move off the back of that. I think for excitement, I think you have to go for Bielsa. But yeah, I think if you want more kind of a continuation of fairly steady La Liga performance, you'd maybe go for Valverde. But I would go for Bielsa personally.
Although I do remember that Valverde's been an artist for the last 18 months. He's been selling his art in rural Spain. I remember putting him on an FD thumb outside the job centre, which we love to do once a year.
I would 100% take Valverde. By the way, I'm just going to say now, Marcelino will be a Premier League manager at some point next season. I can almost I can almost put money on that.
He's got a great record, but he has departed lots of clubs in weird ways, which I don't think. He worked at Valencia, which everyone falls out with Peter Lim, but I don't know. Is there something weird in his character? I have no idea. But his record at Villarreal, Valencia and Athletic Club is pretty exceptional. So I tend to agree with Henry, but I'm just stirring the pot. Spanish football fans, let us know. Is Marcelino a little bit of a tricky character? Who knows? Let us know in the comments down below. But guys, that's all we've got time for on Continental Club for this week. I hope you enjoyed our discussion about clubs losing the transfer window, a little bit about Dortmund, a little bit about Roma and Bielsa, and Athletic Club, of course, is what we finished on. Henry, if they have enjoyed the show, what should they go and watch now? You've got your Explain coming out on Sunday.
Go check out the Explain.
Is it on the FD or FD?
It's FD. It's on FD.
So it's coming out tomorrow.
Actually. Yeah. Transfer review as always.
Yes.
We're talking about Calvin Phillips, whether or not he's going to get game time at City. And yeah, go check out that Explained.
Nice. McCubbs?
Go and check out last week's Continental Club. I can't remember what we talked about on that, but if you want more kind of transfer discussion,
the player your club had to sell.
That's it. If you want another nice negative one, go and check that out. Again, go and check Transfer Review. That's obviously a seasonal series, so you only get so much of it every year. Go and check that. And I also did a Explained on Frenkie de Jong at United. A move I'm not so optimistic about now, but how would he fit? How would Ten Hag use him at United? That's also on FD.
Nice, go and check it out. And also, as ever, I always forget to say at the end of the episode, if you've got any ideas about what you want to see us cover on Continental Club next week, get it in the comments. We're all three of us pretty active in the comments after it goes live, so get your suggestions in there. And we'd love to hear from what you guys want to see us cover. But anyway, guys, have a great weekend, stay safe, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.